Hi, welcome to EPG Pathshala Spanish. I am Rajiv Saxena and I teach Spanish in the Center of Spanish, Portuguese, Italian and Latin American Studies in the Jawaharlal Nehru University, New Delhi. We are doing the paper Intermediate Grammar and we are in the module which we call Practical Spanish-IV or Repaso. The objective of this module is that in the previous chapters we have dealt with topics such as word formations, adverbs, verb charts from verb chart number 1 to verb chart number 3, and these topics are to be understood properly as it requires the attention of the Spanish language learners. So we need to revise all these topics that we have done previously so as to understand and know them better. You can also use these Repaso modules as a tool for having one-stop shop for all the problems that you may be requiring to clarify in the previous modules. So let us start with the revision. And what I would like to start by saying is that the verbs are the most important part of the Spanish language or any other language as we require them to express ourselves. In this chapter, we will deal with some examples, and in order to understand the use of proper verbs and the conjugations, we will have verbs which we have conjugations and examples which will illustrate how to use them. We will also have some exercises in order to strengthen our grips on the topics covered. We shall be revising some important aspects of all the things that we have done in the previous modules. Let us see, firstly, how nouns can be formed from various verbs in Spanish. Some nouns related to verbs consist of the verb stem o or an a. This means, like example, we have aumentar, to increase. It becomes el aumento, to increase. Ayudar, to help, becomes la ayuda, help or the help. Contar, to count, becomes la cuenta, the bill. So in a restaurant you ask for la cuenta por favor. Charlar, for example, is chat and it becomes la charla or chat, the talk. Dudar is to doubt and it becomes la duda, the doubt. Encontrar is to meet and becomes el encuentro or the meeting, the sports match in Latin America. I repeat, charlar becomes la charla. Dudar, to doubt, becomes la duda. Encontrar, to meet, becomes el encuentro, the meeting or the sports match. In the same way, verbs like espantar, to frighten, become el espanto, the fright, the scare. Esperar, to wait, becomes la espera, waiting. Fracasar, to fail, becomes el fracaso or failure. So we can also go on to other verbs like this, which are like gastar, to spend, el gasto, expense. Practicar, to practice, becomes la práctica, practice. Regresar, to return, becomes el regreso, the return. And volar, to fly, becomes el vuelo, the flight. In the same manner, we can see that there are many nouns which are formed from the past participle of the verbs. These can also be as the verb stem plus the suffixes ada for AR verbs and ida for ER and IR ending verbs. I repeat that there are many nouns which are formed from the past participle of verbs. These can also be as the verb stem plus the suffixes ada for AR verbs and ida for ER and IR ending verbs. So, for example, we have the verb bajar, to go down or go downstairs. It becomes la bajada, the way down or the decline. We have the verb caer, to fall. This becomes la caída, the fall. Comer, to eat, becomes la comida, or which is the meal or the food. Correr, to run, becomes la corrida de toros or bullfight. Entrar, to enter, becomes en la entrada or the entrance. In the same way, Ir, to go, becomes la ida, a trip to somewhere. Llegar, to arrive, becomes la llegada. So I repeat quickly. Bajar becomes la bajada, caer becomes la caída, comer becomes la comida, correr becomes la corrida, entrar becomes la entrada, ir becomes la ida, and llegar becomes la llegada. In the same manner, mirar, to look at, becomes la mirada, which is the look or the glance. Salir, to go up, becomes la salida, exit. And subir, to go up, becomes la subida, or the way up or rise. Volver, to go or come back, becomes la vuelta, the return or the trip back. So, quickly again, mirar, to look at, becomes la mirada, look, glance. Salir, to go out, becomes la salida, exit. Subir, to go up, becomes la subida, or the way up or rise. Volver, to go, becomes la vuelta, which is return or the trip back. Many nouns are formed from AR verbs with the suffix sion. Most of these have English cognates ending in shan. For example, admirar is la admiración, the admiration. Organizar is la organización, organization. And invitar is la invitación, invitation. Separar is la separación, separation. So, I repeat that you can form nouns from AR verbs with the suffix sion. These have the English cognates ending in shan. Admirar, la admiración. Organizar, la organización. Invitar, la invitación. Separar, la separación. However, it should be noted that not all English words ending in shan or san have Spanish equivalents ending in sion or sion. So, transportation is translated into Spanish as el transporte. La transportación is very rare. So, please remember, transportation in English becomes el transporte in Spanish, not transportación. The suffixes ansia and encia are also used to form nouns from verbs. Most of the nouns have English cognates. Coincidir becomes la coincidencia. Tolerar becomes la tolerancia. Preferir becomes la preferencia. Vigilar becomes la vigilancia. So, by using these suffixes ansia and encia, we can form nouns from verbs. We can take the examples which I am repeating again, which is coincidir becomes coincidencia, tolerar becomes la tolerancia, preferir becomes la preferencia, and vigilar becomes la vigilancia. The suffix miento is widely used from nouns from verbs. R verbs have the vowel a before the suffix. Both er and ir verbs have the vowel e. So, agotar, to exhaust, becomes el agotamiento, exhaustion. Entender, to understand, becomes el entendimiento, understanding. So, it's very simple that miento is widely used to form nouns from verbs. AR verbs have the vowel a before the suffix, and both er and ir have the vowel e. So, for example, I'll repeat the examples again. Agotar becomes el agotamiento. Entender becomes el entendimiento. In the same manner, we should see how nouns are formed from verbs. And now let's see how the vice versa works here. The suffix er is one of the most common ways to convert a noun into a verb. It can convey the impression of repeated movement or action of the noun. So, párpado, eyelid, becomes parpadear, to blink. Párpado, eyelid, becomes parpadear, to blink. And paso, step, becomes pasear, to walk. So let us see how nouns are formed from verbs. Let us see how the reverse works and how verbs form nouns. So ER is the most common way of converting verbs to nouns. Parpado, the eyelid turns into parpadear, to blink. Paso, step becomes pasear, to walk. Some nouns can be transformed into verbs by the prefix n plus infinitive ending in AR. So, la cadena, chain, becomes en cadenar, to chain. La máscara, mask, becomes en mascarar, to mask. El veneno, poison, becomes envenenar, to poison. So, by putting the prefix n plus infinitive and putting an AR in the end, you have these things. La cadena becomes encadenar, to chain. La máscara becomes enmascarar, to mask. El veneno, poison, becomes envenenar, to poison. We can see is that certain adjectives can also be transformed into verbs by the prefix a plus infinitive ending in ar, ar. So, the adjective fino, fine, becomes afinar, for example, to refine, to tune. Liano, which means flat, becomes alianar, to flatten, to level. Liso, smooth, becomes alisar, to smooth. And manso, tame, becomes amansar, to tame or to domesticate. The suffix -er is added to the stem of some adjectives and nouns to create a new verb. So, oscuro becomes oscurecer, to get dark. Pálido becomes palidecer, to go pale. So, I repeat that the suffix -er is added to the stem of some adjectives and nouns to create a new verb. Oscuro becomes oscurecer and pálido becomes palidecer, to grow pale. Like all -er verbs, the first person singular and the present subjunctive have ZC before the endings. Temo que oscurezca antes de que llegue Miguel. I am afraid it will get dark before Miguel arrives. Temo que oscurezca antes de que llegue Miguel. What we have to see is that many adjectives can be made into verbs with the prefix n or m before b and p and the suffix -er. Adjectives change the c to ku before -er, whose stems end in c. Triste, for example, becomes entristecer, to sadden. Pobre becomes empobrecer, to impoverish. Rico becomes enriquecer. I repeat, many adjectives can be made into verbs with the prefix n or m before b and p and the suffix -er. Adjectives change the c to ku before -er, which stems end in c. Triste becomes entristecer, pobre becomes empobrecer, and rico becomes enriquecer. In the suffix -ada, it can have three different meanings: the full measure of the noun, the amount that the noun holds, and ado is also used in some nouns. So, la cuchara, spoon, becomes la cucharada, a spoonful. La pala, shovel, becomes la palada, shovelful. El puño, fist, becomes el puñado, the fistful. La boca, mouth, becomes el bocado, mouthful. A blow with the object designated by the noun is also a very interesting thing. El cuchillo, a knife, becomes la cuchillada, a slash made with a knife. El puñal, dagger, becomes la puñalada, stab. La pata, foot, becomes la patada, kick. So, the blow with the object designated by the noun takes on a new form. El cuchillo becomes la cuchillada, a slash made with a knife. El puñal, dagger, becomes la puñalada, the stab. And la pata, foot, becomes la patada, the kick. An act typical of the object or person designated by the noun. El animal or una animalada is a stupid or a gross thing to do. El payaso or clown is una payasada, a clown-like action or action worthy of a clown. El muchacho, a boy or a kid, becomes una muchachada, a kid's prank. So, when we are talking about an act which is typical of the object or person designated by the noun, then we are talking about these forms, which is like example, el animal becomes una animalada, el payaso becomes una payasada, and el muchacho becomes una muchachada. The suffix astro or astra is the equivalent of the English step used along with your relatives. So, el hermanastro is your stepbrother. La madrasta is the stepmother. The suffix aso, like ada, can signify a blow with the object designated by the noun. In Latin America, aso can also be an augmentative suffix. For example, la bala, bullet, becomes el balazo, a shot, a bullet wound. El codo, elbow, becomes el codazo, the nudge, the push with the elbow. Los ojos, eyes, become los ojazos, big eyes. In the same sense, the suffix era designates the container formed the object expressed by the noun. So, when you're talking about the container for the object expressed the noun, we use the suffix era or ero. Some nouns also have ero as a suffix for this meaning. So, la sopa, soup, becomes la sopera, which is soup bowl. La pimienta, pepper, becomes el pimientero, which is the pepper shaker. In the same sense, the suffix eria, derived from ero, designates the corresponding store or place of business. So, el lugar donde se vende libros se llama la librería. Libros, la librería, bookseller. Reloj, la relojería. Relojería, which means the watchmaker store or the watch store. In Spanish, adjectives can be formed from adjectives by adding the suffix mente to the singular infinitive form of the adjective. Inmediata, immediate. Extremada, extreme. Obvia, obvious. Lenta, slow. So, inmediata becomes inmediatamente. Extrema becomes extremadamente. Obvia becomes obviamente. And lenta becomes lentamente. So, inmediatamente means immediately, extremadamente means extremely, obviamente means obviously, and lentamente means slowly. Adjectives that have the same form in the feminine as well as in the masculine take the suffix mente without any change. So, when you have the same form in the feminine as well as in the masculine, then the suffix mente comes in without any change. Feliz, happy, becomes felizmente. Final, final, becomes finalmente, finally. By adding mente to an adjective, it is possible to form many adverbs of manner, amongst others, but it is not possible with all Spanish adjectives. English has a certain limited amount of adjectives that end in "ly." So, we have to see that these should not be confused with the adverbs, as they cannot be translated by adding mente only to a Spanish adjective. Probable is likely. Simpático or amigable is friendly. Solo, solitario is lonely, and encantador is lovely. So we can see that merely by adding mente, you cannot translate these into Spanish adjectives. likely is probable, friendly is simpático, amigable, lonely is solo or solitario, and lovely is encantador. Such English adjectives can have an adverbial function using the construction in a way. Its counterpart in Spanish can be the constructions de forma plus singular feminine adjective or de modo plus singular masculine adjective. In this way, we have to see that how in many cases it is possible and even common to use the suffix mente. Es probable que vengan. They are likely to come. Probablemente vengan. They will probably come. So probable and probablemente, the meaning changes, but more or less the entire sentence remains the same. It should be noted that we are never confusing the Spanish adjectives solo, alone, and solitario, lonely, with the adverbs solo and solamente, which mean only or just. Solo, solamente, quiero leche. I only just want some milk. Me siento tan solo. I feel so lonely. Me siento tan solo. The adjective solitario usually refers to the fact that there are no other people or things involved. Sometimes it denotes a preference to be alone. Pique es un hombre solitario. Pique is a lonely man. Un lugar tan solitario me da miedo. Such a lovely place gives me frights, or such a lonely place frightens me. Un lugar tan solitario me da miedo. Such a lonely place frightens me. Some Spanish adverbs ending in mente have a narrower meaning than their corresponding adjectives in English. Discutimos el tema acaloradamente. We discussed the subject hotly. El público aplaudió calurosamente. The public applauded warmly. So, these Spanish adverbs ending in mente have a narrower meaning than their corresponding adjectives in English. Acaloradamente is hotly and calurosamente becomes warmly. There are some Spanish adjectives that can be used as adverbs, but when this is the case, they do not end in mente and are in the masculine singular form, not the feminine or plural form. Fuiste allí muy rápido or rápidamente. You went there very fast. So, when we're talking about adjectives that can be used as adverbs, but only when they do not end in mente and are in the masculine singular form, not the feminine or plural. So, we can have another example to illustrate, which is podemos marcar directo or podemos marcar directamente desde aquí. We can dial direct from here. Estamos trabajando muy duro or estamos trabajando muy duramente. We are working very hard. It is very important to remember that adjectives agree in gender and number with the nouns that they modify. Un hombre guapo, a handsome man. Una hombre muy guapa becomes a very beautiful woman. So, guapo is hombre, that is why it is guapo. When you're talking about a mujer, it becomes guapa because you're talking about a feminine object. When adjectives are used as adverbs, only the masculine form is possible. Sheila canta muy bonito. Sheila sings very prettily. Remember that adjectives refer to nouns. Example, the cabins are very pretty. And adverbs refer to the action represented by the verb. Example, his action of singing sounds very nice. So now, let us discuss some common adjectives that are often used as adverbs. Fácil is a very good example. The adjective fácil, easy, can sometimes act as an adverb, especially in colloquial language, instead of the adverb fácilmente. This most often happens when the direct object is singular and in short answers. With plural direct objects, fácilmente is preferable. Ehsan lo hace todo muy fácil. Ehsan does everything very easily. Regular. The adjective regular, fair medium, is entirely different in meaning from the adverb. Regularmente, regularly. Mi padre juega al baloncesto regularmente. My father plays basketball regularly. The same is the case words like alto and bajo. The adjectives alto, high, and bajo, low, can be used as adverbs when referring to height or to level. So, to conclude, we would like to say that we have tried to revise whatever we have studied in the previous modules. However, we should refer to other sources to gain more knowledge about these topics. So please go to the section marked as Know More and know more about these topics in greater detail. Also, please go to the section of self-assessment and do the exercises so that you can practice and become perfect in speaking, writing and reading Spanish. Muchas gracias.